Star Wars 7 by 7 episode 2522 today on a What to Watch Now episode. We're going to talk about the High Republic show. We haven't talked about it in a while, and there's a couple of things that I would love to share with you about it that I thought were especially cool. Punch it. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7 by 7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy. And thank you so much for joining me for it. So the High Republic show, hosted by Christina Ariel, has come out actually with 3 episodes so far, and I'm a little bit behind. I caught up on episode 2 today, or yesterday from when this show comes out today. Confusing, I know, but be that as it may, it was the March show, and it's a longer show comparatively. Like, This Week in Star Wars comes out and it's like about 5-ish minutes long or something like that. Whereas the High Republic show, this goes on for like 26 minutes. It's, really great. They have multiple features on there, including this time an extended conversation with people working on the art for the High Republic, and then a roundtable conversation with Claudia Gray, who's the author of Into the Dark, and Daniel José Older, who's the author of the High Republic Adventures comic series and the upcoming Race to Crash Point Tower, and Jen Heddle, who is an executive editor for Lucasfilm Publishing. There's also a very breezy recap of the story so far, because when the first episode of the High Republic show came out, it came out in January, so Into the Dark had not yet been released, so we get to get that involved in there, as well as other comic stories that have come out over the last little bit of time in between the 2 episodes. And then there's also a section of, the cool animation videos that they've been doing to detail more information about the High Republic, and they share the one about the Santeca family in this, and then Christina Ariel does reveals, which, at this point, like March, the reveals are already pretty much done, but Syl, who's the main character of the Out of the Shadows book, is revealed in this episode.
One of the things that I have found interesting about the High Republic is that we do see not only the Jedi, but the Padawans questioning a lot more than we do in the later series of Star Wars. Are we seeing the origins of the dark side coming back?
I think in a way it's the opposite, actually. It's that, we've always known the Jedi at war, right? So what we're seeing now instead is the Jedi at their peak, and because of that, they get to think about the Force in ways that we never got to see them think about the Force, and wonder, what is my role? What does the Force mean to me? All these deeper questions that you kind of have the luxury of being able to ask when you're not constantly under attack.
I agree with all of that, but I would also add, the dark side never goes away, ever. I mean, it is a part of the Force. It's inextricable. Maybe it isn't organized into the shapes that we remember with the Sith and the First Order and the Empire, but that doesn't mean it's not there. It's always there. Certainly the Drengir are fairly steeped in the dark side of the Force. There's always darkness for the Jedi to combat.
And the Tempest Runner audio drama that's going to come out is revealed in this one too, but that's, comparatively old news now. So the majority of the episode is taken up by the conversation that happens between Christina and Claudia and Daniel and Jen. And yeah, it's a really great talk. And there's one particular question that Christina asked that I really thought was awesome, and the answers from both Daniel and Claudia were very awesome, about the Jedi themselves and about how the Padawans are more questioning than they are when we see them in other Star Wars stories, particularly in the prequel trilogy, for example. And so I'm going to share with you the audio clip of it. Here's Christina asking the question and Daniel and Claudia's answers. Yeah, pretty cool, right? That's, I think that's the highlight, at least for me, from that whole roundtable discussion. But I'm going to link to the whole episode so you can check it out in the blog post for the show's episode, sw7x7.com, and in the show notes as well. Okay, so other things I wanted to share with you that I thought were especially notable. First of all, the portion of the show where they talk about the artwork, developing the artwork for the High Republic. So it's a pre-produced package piece. It features Michael Siglain, who is the creative director for Lucasfilm Publishing, Troy Alders, who is an art director for Lucasfilm and Disney, and Jeffrey Thomas, who is a senior illustration manager for Disney Publishing. And one of the things I thought was fascinating was that the artwork situation developed out of the meetings that we've heard about the, the summits that the writers had along with Story Group and other interested parties up at Skywalker Skywalker Ranch and the development of the whole Project Luminous situation. But one part of those meetings was, or one outcome of those meetings was, the development of certain archetypes. And they don't talk about what the archetypes are, and I would love to ask one of the authors this question. So the next time I have a High Republic author on the show, I'm going to be including that as part of my, hopeful question asked situation. But the archetypes are passed along to the artists, and so Phil Noto and Ian McCraig and other artists, or Ian McCaig, excuse me, and other artists were, given that information, and then, went to town on developing the, potential artwork for the Jedi and the Nihil and the Drengir and the non-associated characters, other characters like, say, Syl from the Coming Out of the Shadows, or Geode. Oh, by the way, the concept art for Geode exists. We've talked about it. It's actually kind of out, and I'll explain a little later. But anyway, so they all go to town, and Jeffrey Thomas also revealed that they were even looking back at things conceptually that were done but never got used in certain formats, like, for example, Marchion Rowe's helmet, that there were early designs for other projects that never particularly worked out, or maybe the designs were part of a development process and some other thread of development got created and that one got backburnered, but they revisited that and made changes and updates to it and said, oh, it would be perfect for this, and so there you go. And so that was kind of cool to hear about as well. And speaking of the Nihil specifically, the segment toward the end of the episode where they take questions from the Twitterverse and pose them to someone. So the person who answered them this time was a gentleman named Jason Stein, who is a creative executive with Lucasfilm Story Group. And one of the questions had to do with the design aesthetic for the Nihil, and the questioner said that there were sort of similarities, it seemed, between the Cloud Riders from Solo: A Star Wars Story and the Nihil. And so Jason says that the initial inspirations for the Nihil's designs were punk rock and also Viking inspirations, and that it iterates from there until we get what we see in the concept art that we've seen so far. And during the round table, Daniel Jose Older said that the writers are actually in communication with the concept artists on a regular basis, and also, the artists who are drawing the comics and so forth, and that is providing additional information and inspiration for them too. So, what a wonderful thing to have this, continuous back and forth between the writers and the artists, and how the stories and, the way they're depicted are flowering as a result of that collaboration. And there's a mention too about how the Jedi are, being tied to some degree with the prequel era Jedi, but, not making it like, oh yeah, the Jedi of the High Republic, look and are dressed and are this, the whole aesthetic is exactly like the prequels. No, of course not. It is, the peak of the Jedi, this golden age for the Jedi, and it's supposed to have, little, elements, then they don't necessarily, really define how they're doing it, but they say there are these little things with adornments and filigree and whatnot that kind of echo or kind of give you a hint of, oh, you can see things in the prequels that may connect all the way back to this High Republic stuff. So very cool. And they also introduced the fact that there's an infographic gallery. This is at starwars.com/the-high-republic. And in this infographic gallery, they have two things right now. It's still two things. It was the same two things that they announced in March, which is basically a timeline and also a character chart. And on the character chart is where you can get a peek at Geode from the metaphorical neck up, basically. So that's the first image reveal that I've seen for Geode, and he's not in the databank yet, but hey, it's something. So now if you want to get a visual of that, you can. In fact, actually, for the title card that I create for the show, I'm going to use the Geode graphic that they have in that character chart, so you can see it for yourself. And so, yeah, that's highlights from episode 2 of the High Republic show that I thought were especially worth flagging and chatting about with you, and that is going to do it for this episode of the show. It just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
Wars 7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the force be with them. All original content is copyright 2021 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.